Hi, I decided to promote this video that is just an excellent example that explains step by step how to install and configure NAT on a Raspberry Pi. It will be in the descriptions. I recommend you to watch it because it is very important to see it, how everything is configured, and I also follow this tutorial to be able to configure my NAT server and to solve the issue I had. Okay, I'm switching to the terminal now. You should see it. And first of all, you need to run the lsusb command. It shows you the devices that are connected to the USB to your Raspberry Pi. And it will allow you to find out what device is actually connected through which USB port. Then you need to perform, you can see these devices. And that's all. How you can know I had to find out that exactly this path, this is the device, this is my green cell IO UPS that is connected to this. And if you will unplug and run the LSUSB port, then this will change. This is the way you can find out. You just run the command when everything is unplugged. I mean, when the UPS is unplugged, and then you plug the UPS or another USB, you run the lsusb command, and you can see that the description is changed. Then you need to perform the below command to update the repository. So just sudo update. If it will find anything, you need to upgrade the system to have the system up to date. So upgrade this way, and that is all. If it is required for some time to time, you can see that the kernel is installed or something like that. So you should reboot the Raspberry Pi, so sudo reboot. But I will not reboot the server, up to date now. Then we are going to install the NAT client and NAT server. So easy, sudo apt install NAT client and NAT server. This way I have already installed all of this, so it will not install. The next, you can use a utility called a NAT scanner to actually probe the UPS device and get some information from it, so you can configure it a little bit easier. So sudo NAT scanner, like that. That's fine. Oh no, not. And you can see the configuration, right? And you can copy the result and paste it into the notepad, or make some note of it, and you can use some of these values in your configuration. The configuration is stored in etc NAT UPS conf, so we will display it cat etc NAT conf. Permission is denied below, and you can see the configuration is working as a NAT server, and that is all. This is the only one line that is important here. So I had to test some of these settings, right, and read another documentation that you can find on networkupstools.org. I will also put this URL into the description. So I had to read the manual and find out what actually settings are connected for my UPS IO device, and what I did actually ups.conf, and you can see that I defined all those values, all those variables, right? So I called my device IO, there is a driver, and I had to change it because here I will use it once again. It's the scan. So you have comparison. Not it recommended me to use the NAT driver ATCL USB, but it was not working properly, so I had to change to NAT driver QX. Then choose the subdriver Fabula and lang ID fix. Those values are variables, actually are additional. Also, I had to override some settings to make it work properly. So I had to read also the documentation from the vendor, the green cell, to be sure which values are correct. And this is how it's done. And I was finally able to work with this mentioned UPS, with this green cell IO 600 VA. What next? You need to edit the UPS mon.conf. So UPS mon.conf. And here, what I actually did, I will scroll it up a little bit. Up. And here, I'm monitoring my device, my IO. This is the IP address of my Raspberry Pi and the password, and it's working as a master, not as a slave. So it's defined here. And that is all actually. And now the UPSD conf, and it is listening on all IP addresses. So if you want to be able to connect to the Raspberry Pi from other devices, because Raspberry Pi is working as a master that is controlling the UPS and behavior of the UPS, and you need to connect other devices that will be also controlled through this Raspberry Pi, then you need to modify this way to listen on all IP addresses. And okay, nat.conf displayed. Check again. Nat.conf, yes, displayed. So what next? UPSD users. You need to define the user here. So I defined it as UPS mon, just UPS monitoring, right? So UPS mon is the name of the user and the password, and it's telling you that UPS mon user is working as a master. And that is all. And UPS schedule conf. And what I did at the end, I defined status of and behavior of the UPS. So I had to read the documentation, of course, and find out which values should be set here. But at the beginning, it is defined where the script is located. So if you will use this ways, you can see it's a script actually. So I had to modify it a little bit and define those values here. Define here. So on battery online, you can see, right? On bat online, low bat online, combat, and you can see combat, early shutdown critical, UPS gone, replace the battery. So replace battery, replace bat. So you can define it that this is the command from here at replat bat, replace bat, right? So combat, shutdown critical online. It's shutdown critical in this file, shutdown critical, right? So this is how it's done. And cancel timer, where should the timer start, where defined in milliseconds here. So that is all. And what's the name next? And run as user, if I remember correctly, cmd script. To be honest, I don't remember. CD, PC, USB. No, CD, not. LS. Like, maybe this is place. This is UPS.com. But I don't remember where is the run as root, because there is a script which should be as root. Yes, the conf. I'm checking it now because it's very important. Max no, that. Go to new case, the user. Up, down. No, not this file. UPS mon. Monitor. Yes, this one. In UPS mon, you need to define to run as user root, not as not. So we need to run the not configuration root. And that is all actually. And what next? The next step was to set up a Home Assistant as a Docker container. Because I'm using an AdGuard here, so it's running locally on a local host, and the Home Assistant by default is also running as a local host. So I didn't want to, I just wanted to separate those services first of all, and I didn't want to properly config the Nginx server, because there is a lot of configuration with virtual host, and I had the difficulties to configure it. Of course, I can set up properly the Nginx server, it's not a problem for me, but just for security reason, I decided to use a Docker container instead of setting up the separate virtual host on Nginx to run the Home Assistant separately on a separate port. It was much easier for me to use a Docker container. So what I had to do is just to create a home assistant YAM file. And this is the YAM file for the Home Assistant. I will put it also in the description. Then what you need to do is just to install the Docker sudo's URL ssl https getdocker.com pipe sh. So it will run the script that is installing the Docker. And after that, you need to add the Docker group to the current user. So sudo user mode ag docker. It's adding the Docker group to the currently logged in user. So if I will id Adrian, so you can see at the end there is a group Docker, and it allows me to run Docker command. Then you need to install the pip3 sudo apt pip3, this one. It's already installed, and after that you need to install the sudo pip3 Docker Compose. Install the Docker Compose with the pip3, and that is all. Then you need to enable the Docker. Systemctl enable the Docker. Then you need to start the Docker and check the status of the Docker, right? So you can see it's running on my Raspberry Pi. So then how to run the Home Assistant. So run the Docker Compose with -f. Select the Home Assistant YAM file, apt remove overruns. That is all. This is the command that will run the Docker path. not using it, right? And then I'm checking the sudo. Yes, I'm checking the running instance. It's up. Then sudo docker container ls. I will list it just like that, and it shows the currently running Home Assistant container and the killed hello world that was tested 5 weeks ago. That is all. So if you want to kill the container, sudo docker kill command and use the ID of the container. You can see the error because it cannot kill the container that is not running. You need to kill the container that is running. That's the reason of this error. And if you want to restart the service, I mean the container, so sudo docker start and Home Assistant, so we are using the name of the container, or query Rubin in this case, and it's restarting. So it needs to wait a little bit longer, and if you will check, you can see it's up to 2 seconds. That's correct. And if you want to start a container during the boot process, so here I have the command that it required sudo docker update restart unless docker psq. It is the command. It is doing one thing. It is taking care about restarting all the running currently containers during the boot process. So when the Raspberry Pi restarts, it will restart the containers, all the containers too that are running currently in the system. So if you will run sudo docker psq, it shows the ID of the currently running container. That is correct. So because the Home Assistant is working locally, so I had to create a SSH tunnel to be able to access it from my laptop. Actually, it is not very a big deal, and if you will run the Putty, for example, or another software, I don't know which software you are using to log into the servers. I just using terminals. I'm using a lot of terminals. Putty also if I have to work with the Windows. But there is one thing. If you have a configuration in some software for SSH, so you need to find a section called tunnel, and then you have to define the source port. It will be, in this case for Home Assistant, it's a port number 8123, and in the destination you need to use something like localhost 8123. I will present you in a moment. It looks like I switch to a browser and you can see it's localhost 8123, right? It's a column here, so localhost column 8123, and all of this, that's all you need to type it here, and you can see it's already auto-filled the URL, so you don't have to care about it more. Okay. Now I should be able to log in. I will put it my username and password here. But you need to be patient because I'm recording it in the OBS studio. It slows down because my laptop is not a super fast machine. Okay, so right this way. Name of the user. Paste it. I don't know why Chrome is not responding correctly. Come on, please. Come on, come on, come on. This is the worst part. Okay, the Adrian, it was twice. So now the password. And login. It should ask me that from the beginning. Yeah. It asks me for the one-time password. I'm using the Authy application on my phone. Very convenient. I can recommend it. And it should log in. So we need to wait a little bit longer than usual because I'm recording it. It's loading. Still loading. Okay. Come on, come on, come on. It's in Polish language, so you have to forgive me. But you can see there is an AdGuard here defined, and here you have a I/O device, so it shows you the input voltage load, output voltage status, and the status data. How I did it actually? It very easily. You have settings, and here you have devices and services, the second option. And when it will load, you can see there is a service added. So you can add an integration here with the big blue button, and actually from the list of the devices, you can select the device you want to connect into the Home Assistant and add it here easily. Very, very convenient. So you have a lot of here integration, but if you need to integrate it, you can look for the proper solution, right? So how I did it, I just network UPS tools, it's called that, and I don't know will it be able to find it this way. You can try to do that, but I just looked for the network UPS tools section and I added here. So in the same way I added other services, like you can see it here. And what's the network? You can see network UPS tool that. And please wait. The configuration, you can type the IP address, the port, name of the user. In my case, it was a UPS mon, and this password written strangely. But this is the way you can define it. And after that, you have to confirm it. I will not add it here now. And all I wanted to show you is just that you need to click on your username, and then you can define the two-factor authentication here. So you can read how to run the two-factor authentication module and how to make it work, and that is all. And also you can define the token for the URL, the access token. And that is all. To log out, just like that, you have to select this logout, and you can log out only here in user section. I don't know why Home Assistant doesn't have any logout option. Probably there is some kind of modular button that is, that you can configure here in the home panel, right? Edit the dashboard. So probably there is some kind of, you can add some kind of section here, but I wasn't able to find the way to find a logout button here. So, ready. And if you want to define those values, so it's very easy. So if you want to edit the dashboard, you can just edit the settings like this one. Edit it, and you can see the status are here of the entity. And you can see IO input voltage, load output voltage, status, and status data. So you can define everything. You can switch, you can choose the position, you can change it up until. Okay, I will cancel it and ready. And that is all. That's the whole configuration. Actually, there is nothing more. In Home Assistant, I will log off, log out actually, log out. Okay, I will switch back to the terminal. Just give me a second. Okay, switched back, and what I have to do now, the next step is difficult. I had to write a bash script that will log into the Mikrotik router and perform the shutdown command before the Raspberry Pi will shut down. And I had to use a bash script that I tested on my Mikrotik HAP AC2 model, and there was a problem because to make it work I had to install the sshpass this way, sudo apt install sshpass. Then I had to use a non-standard port to be able to make it work. And we will switch to the root and Mikrotik sh. So in Mikrotik sh, and you can see this is the script that I did actually. So what I did, the result of the script execution is recorded in the Mikrotik log located in the root directory. So all the below, the exact all of this from the data to the fee is recorded to the Mikrotik log. So it's trapping everything into this log file. So you can see the first I defined the data, the current date and with current time. Then I defined the not log here in varlog not log, and there is a variable if. Look for the Mikrotik in the not log because I defined it the way I will try to display. If I remember correctly, cat bin UPS cmd and APC blah 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 battery Mikrotik shutdown, this one, and this forces Mikrotik shutdown is going into the log, right? Into this varlog that log. So it's looking for the phrase Mikrotik in this not log, and if it will find it, if there will be the defined situation that there is an early shutdown because there is a problem with the battery is on a low level, then we are going to a early shutdown, and that UPS and battery too long, forced Mikrotik shutdown. So it looked for the configuration in the log. It looked for the configuration for the log. It found Mikrotik. Okay, it early shutdown status. I have found the Mikrotik. Then router will go down, right? UPS down, and this is the title of the UPS down is a text inside of mail. The S-S says this is the title of the email. UPS alert down. It's going to my email address, and then everything that is in Mikrotik log, the Mikrotik log is attached into the script, or you can use the dash uppercase A. Instead, you can use it this way, but you will use it this way. It will also attach the log, but this way is much more convenient for me. And then it's removing the not log and touching the not log. Why? Because without this, you will have the Mikrotik phrase all the time in the log. So it will shut down constantly, right? The server, actually the router, in this case, my Mikrotik router. So it will find, okay, there is a phrase, okay, we are going to shut down the router. So to get rid of this, because this is the logic that the Mikrotik phrase will be only when there will be a low battery and there will be an early shutdown process. So each time it has to be cleaned up, then created from the scratch anew with the command touch, then owned as a root user and ADM group, and the H mode, it's setting up the permission for this log and restarting the RSS log. After that, it is logging into the Mikrotik router with sshpass command. Credentials are stored in the root directory in creds file, and then ssh-o user known host file. It goes for the dev node strict host checking. We are not checking the strict host key. We are not checking the host IP address. We are using a non-standard port 2244, for example, in this case in localhost, and we are logging into the Mikrotik with user nat 10.10.0.1, and we are going to perform a command system shutdown confirm y this and quit. And this way it is shutting down the Mikrotik router and quitting. Thanks this, we are going back to the Raspberry Pi terminals, the CLI command line, and then we are going to exit, and it ends the script. Else, if there is no Mikrotik phrase in the NAT log, then the interesting information Mikrotik router will remain powered on, and exit. And that's the script that did the job. And what I did, I added the cron tab E, and what I did, I added this star \1 root Mikrotik sh. It is running every 1 minute the script, and it's checking the status, right? And these are additional. You don't have to care about it. The email notify about the status. It was the Raspberry Pi started, booted up, restarted. I have the configuration here. NAT is responsible for restarting all the NAT services during the reboot process, and root CPU frec sh. It's changing the governor. I will show you the email notify, vim email notify. So it's sleeping, the script is sleep 60 seconds, then echo ifconfig at 0. So I'm grabbing the with the cut and awk. I just wanted to have a pure IP address, then hostname f and echo hostname online IP address, get the IP address, put it into the email.txt file, echo root email txt file, and put the date into the text file. So I commented it out, and this is the correct echo. Hostname is up, so it shows me that the name of the hostname is a Raspberry Pi. So this is the text in the email. Raspberry Pi is up. Mail a attach root email, attach the email.txt, and the title, the Raspberry Pi, hostname Raspberry Pi online, and my email address. And in the email text, you have a date and exact command that the IP address is up. Actually, the host name is online and IP address is the 10.10.0.110. And then remove the email txt file as an attachment at the end. So this is it. Oh, so this was the email notify. Will not sh. This is sleep 3 minutes. Restart not server client monitor stop and start the driver. That's all. And CPU frac. This is it. Sleeps 600 seconds and set the governor as conservative. Okay, that is all. So what I did actually additionally, I created a NAT user on a Mikrotik and additionally tested it with RSA keys without a passphrase. What in LAN is, let's say, secure enough. All you have to do is to save private and public key in openSSH format, but not the newest one, but instead the standard format. Hope I explained it well. Just because Puttygen allows you to save the RC key in the new openSSH format and also in the older, the standard format. Anyway, you have to upload the private key into the files in Mikrotik, and then in system user section import the key for a user. But you can also use an ordinary password with sshpass, as I did in the password. And if you want to use the RSA, you have to remove this from the bash script. And that is all. Just with the command spawn ssh, like this one. This way you can remove spawn ssh root creds. So this is what I did in the Mikrotik, right? SSH this way, but you can use the spawn if you want to ignore it. You can remove it from the script without removing the command. And that's all actually. What next? In my case, I did the same what author of the tutorial I mentioned in the beginning. I added it into this file. So I added those values: syslog tag contain tpsmon, not eapsget, log, not log. So because the default logger, the default system logger from the Raspberry Pi is rsyslog, and this way I changed the information that those tags from a upsmon, not an upscat, they are going into the NAT log. Then all you have to do is just to create the NAT log, touch var log NAT log, right? You can do it manually and set the user root and group ADM to NAT log, and then set permission, right? And restart the syslog. CTL syslog service this way. So that is all, and thanks to this all the NAT logs will go there, and if you will run the dmessage, there will be no UPS UPS logs here in the dmessage. In the system syslog, right? So that's the way how I did it, because previously there was information like entered blocking state, disabled forwarding state, entered blocking state, and you know, I had a lot of mess in that message. I don't like it. And of course, it is only in a situation when you have a UPS device that is actually creating a mess, that is all the time constantly logging into the message all those values there. So if you don't want to have it, if you don't want to have a mess in the message in the system log, there is a solution like I mentioned. And what next? At the end, you have to do this. You have to create UPS rules, and you can see you need to set this way: subsystem USB go to not USB UPS rules. And for the green cell, I did it. I'd change subsystem USB device ID vendor. ID vendor I get from the beginning, from the NAT scanner, and that is all. Thanks all. And because of that, I was able to get rid of those messages from the syslog, syslog actually. And I mentioned also this, that in UPS get I defined those values at the end, so I did it this way. So I said start timer 300 and 180 seconds, and then shutdown critical 30 seconds, combat 30 seconds connection. So early shutdown is set to 180 seconds, and after that it is shutting down the Mikrotik router. And that is all actually. What else? You can use the email as I did, VM email as I already presented, but I had to configure the postfix. So first of all, you need to install, if you don't have it, apt or sudo apt install postfix. It will ask you, do you want to install all of this, and if there will be any information about additional packages, so you have to agree. Select type Y and hit enter to confirm and install the postfix with all the needed packages. And then you need to edit this file, etc postfix main.cf, and change it the way I did. So first of all, smtpd down banner, with no app and my domain no, readme. And what I did, I commented out my origin, and then I added smtpd DLSL files. They go, this is the way, this is the default. And I did actually, it's I set it this way. I set the smtpd relay restriction, then I set my hostname, alias, maps, database, destination, IP addresses that are running correctly. I set default transport and relay transport to SMTP. So this is what I did, and this is the whole postfix configuration. Not a big deal actually for a postfix. And then you need to create aliases, etc. Yeah, this way. And what I did at the end, at the bottom, the root, and the root is set as my address. That's all. And thanks of this. And when you do this way, when you add this the last line like I did. You need to run the postconf grep config directory and command, and it will get the config directory from etc postfix. So that is all. And voila, and yeah, and the email notify, right? So that is how it works. Yeah, line by line. Try to get it. Should display the IP address because it configured this way. You can see you have the IP address, so I wanted pure only the IP address. So this way I did it. And then hostname F shows this, the hostname, and echo hostname, Raspberry Pi online IP address IP. So the variable IP, it will show this, and this goes to the root email. Echo root email txt, add a date to the file, and if we will see that email takes, sorry, my txt should be there. There is no, because it's moved. Yeah, right. So it is running the way that it is sending the information that the host is up only when it's booted up, right? Cron tab L, so reboot. During the reboot process, run it only once when the machine rebooted. And it tells me that Raspberry Pi is online, and thanks of this I know that Raspberry Pi is online, and also the Mikrotik is online too, because when you when there is a power on, when the power will go back, the UPS will start, and then the Raspberry Pi will start, and Mikrotik also will start automatically. So thanks this, now if the UPS will go down, it will be notified that is down, and also when the Raspberry Pi will boot up, when everything is working. So this is the way I did, and thank you very much for your patience. I hope I explained it enough well. And one information, that sometimes it happens that you can find the emails from the Raspberry in the spam directory in your Google Mail account, right? So you need to mark it as not a spam. It depends on the configuration, because by default, the Google Mail, to avoid spammers, requires a PTR record. And you have an information that the emails come from the server that does not have the PTR record defined in the domain settings or in the bin. So this is the way we can avoid the situation. We need to mark that this is not a spam, and this way we will receive emails directly into our inbox in Gmail. Of course, if you are using a different email provider, it can be differ. It can differ. I don't know, for example, for which email servers how it will behave, because the problem is with the whole mail configuration. It can happen that if you will be using some different operator email provider, right? So you may not receive the email, or if you will be able to run it the way that your email provider will allow you to add a PTR record into the domain you are using, because I'm describing the situation that you have your own domain, but you don't have your own email server. You're using some external email service, and where you have your email address in your own domain defined. So in the situation when you can define the PTR record for your email MX record, and you can define the PTR record for it, then it will work. Then you will receive email. But if you don't have a PTR record added and you are using your own domain, own email address in your own domain, then you can probably add a PTR. You will have to add a PTR record to be able to receive email. It depends on the configuration on the servers, on the mail server side, because mostly email providers are securing the configuration to not let the mail server to be an open relay, to not allow senders, the spammers, to send email as you. Of course, it's a very often situation that spammers are using some email servers that are not properly secured, but you don't have to worry about it. If you want to set up your own mail server, you need to wait a little bit longer because I did it. I have my own email server, but it requires much more configuration to configure the domain properly. So in the beginning, I set it very restrictive. Then I decided I don't want to maintain the email server anymore. I don't want to host it on some VPS server because I had to buy for it, and I decided to choose email server in my own domain. So I was testing it, and I wasn't receiving emails because there was a problem, of course, that currently the ISP server I'm using, the ISP email is not allowing me to add a PTR record, right? And because of that, the email is refused as a spam. This is the information that you need to know. That sometimes when you are sending emails from the server, it can be treated as a spam, and the PTR record is helpful. Of course, there are also settings like SSPF record, DMARC, and OpenDMARC, and DKIM records also. They are very helpful, and also defines that the server you're sending is yours. They are sending emails from you. If yours belongs to you, and it's recognized. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope you'll enjoy it. I know it was a little bit longer than I suppose it will to be, but I decided to explain it more in details. Then you will have a knowledge how it behaves, and when it is sending emails, when you are not receiving it, how the whole configuration is working, how Home Assistant is working, how you can run it with Docker, and that is all. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice day.